Hello there. In this video, we continue exploring Vue applications and we look at very important things. I think that is the most important things inside the Vue. It is atmosphere and lighting. So we won't go into deep in details in this video, but we'll for sure will cover that in our future videos. So be sure you subscribe, like, do all this necessary stuff. Be sure you follow these videos when it's new once we'll release it. The reason why I say the lighting is important because we can easily create terrain, and tell you true, we do good texture is important with this, but because everything is based on a lighting is number one important in our rendering. So even right here, I have a default colors, default texture, just basic. But if we take our sunlight and we'll start move around, like putting golden hour just behind, you can see already in our pre-renders how much it's changed. And we're putting up front, it's getting a little bit flat, less interesting. So the positioning and direction of the lighting, it is important. I do like put it a little bit on the side because we are working in 3D environment, but we are working with a 2D representation. So we're looking through our screen. And shadow and highlights is what give it as dimensions of the object. I like to put it just light on the side, around here, and you notice as we're going, look, we have the shadows creating, so we can preview what's going on with shadows. If I just work with a landscape, if I don't have plants or other elements, I do like add a little bit softness to my lighting. To add softness, we can work with specific properties of the currently sun or directional lights. If we look right here, it is going like, imagine not specific any one single teeny tiny point. It's just like huge lights coming from one direction. It's like a sun. Even we see sun far away and see as a round disk, but actually the lights is going like almost from all of those directions. Okay, so let's go ahead right now, look on properties of our sun. And we'll select it in our world browser, which located on the bottom right side. And if you notice on the top right, we have it object properties. We have our colors, we have it our lenses, we have it volumetrics and shadows. Let's just right click on the shadows and go to click edit shadows. This will be our light editor, where we have it properties for the sun, but it's not necessarily just sun. These light properties can be applied to all other light sources, which is, if you remember from previous videos, we have it, we can access with our left side from drop down box, where we have it, our directionals, point lights, and all different kind of lighting. But let's go right now and look on our sun. And you notice we have it first up, it's a lens flare. We can click to enable lens flare, which creates similarity in our camera view, and this is look like almost predefined, but we can modify this. So if we're going inside our lens flare tab, and by the way, if sometimes UI, like in my computer video card, sometimes does not refresh properly, just click around on these tabs and it will refresh. And you'll notice we have properties where we have it rings. We can enable like rings around. We have it random strikes will create it, and also add some reflections. Preview right there, you can see. We can intensify, for example, let's go disable all of this in our preview, and we'll have it rings, and you can see right there, you see that ring created. We can increase radius of this ring. We also can increase like strikes, add more, there goes sharpness, and we can add also reflection. If you want to modify more of your custom, you can select from here, but if you go into custom, you'll notice you have an additional menu where you can modify all of these different type of reflections. Plus you can add even your own. So this is very in-depth lens flare you can creating for your system. Okay, we want to add right now, we'll just create like this. And we also have it flare, how you want a brightness on the flare. Anamorphic streak, which is give it like horizontal line, color shift, star filter if we need applied, fading of the screen, and that is will add lens flare. Mostly if we do this, that is actually object need to be seen like in a camera, so it will bring up right here. Then you can see on a screen we have it, those see lens flare start creating. So it's kind of object light source need to be visible in our screen. But let's go put it on the side, and if I'm putting on a side again, leave it right there. We don't really need this lens flare, so I'm going to just disable for now. Next, what we have it's a light gels. Light gels is cool if you want to create like maybe underwater beams or specific way you want to create lights, how it is projecting. We'll look a little bit more on the gels when we start creating this volumetric lighting inside the forest. We have this cool project coming up, but generally you can enable and you can preload it if you click modify materials, or you can also just go click on arrow and select any specific light gels that will apply it. It does have a little bit trick how to use them, but right now in the render you can see it's like almost shadows projecting already on our ground. With volumetric lighting, you will see like rays coming down from the lights. Okay, volumetric lighting, it is enabled again, see those volumetric, and in the sun we don't have that many options, but if you're using single lighting, we will have it also intensity, dust, and some additional elements. But this is fine. What we look more for sun for us, it will be important next ones. Shadows, it is how much shadows is creating from our sun. By default, it is shadow density 100, and if it's too intense, you can reduce. As reducing, you can see right here, the shadows gets softer. And in many cases, what I found out, if you want more natural look, and sometimes you want to go to maybe about 98, 97, that will create nicely a bit softer, not so high contrast, almost like add ambient lighting. And as before I says, for the softness, I do like using shadow maps. And if you create shadow map, you can notice it will create much softer, more interesting shadows. But I notice it's not always work as well when you have it plants. For some reason, with some transparency, it just does not look as good. In this case, you can switch to ray tracing. But generally, if you just make a simple landscape with texture and everything, this should work very good. We could play also with the after size and buckets, smaller, bigger. So play around with this. Just see which one will work better for you. Okay. Let's disable the shadows. I will put it 97 here. This is our different type of lighting. If you have it like variable lighting, for example, fallout, you can start maybe with the green and fallout to purple, and as long as it's just different options. Again, on the sun, on the one direction, let's not necessarily work the grade. And the next one, influence, and influence quite a bit useful option, because what we have here, its ability to tell which light affect which object there. Sometimes maybe you create model, you put on middle and it's get too dark. If you put light source and it's affecting just everything in scenery, you maybe don't want this. It's too bright. You just want highlight one specific things. In this case, you can use it influence of this. And it's have one interesting trick what I found out. Now let me show you actually right now. So let's go ahead, cancel all of this stuff. And trick with this influence, I'll delete this one. We'll go create cube right here. Okay, let's put this cube on the side, and we'll just create another cube next to this. And for some reason it's teeny tiny. Well, let's increase this cube right there. Rotate, and just imagine that this cube, it's maybe screen or some other ones created object, usually like LCD screen you can create very good. And what's happening if I select one light? And for this, I'm just going to select the simple, let's go to quadratic lights source, which is going in every direction. So we'll put down here. Let's take our main camera open, and I want to be sure that after exposure is off. Okay, we'll take sunlight, and let's take sunlight down. And right here you can see these quadratic lights, which on the middle, yes, it is kind of affecting both areas. So it's highlight, and that's what's supposed to do. Yes, it spread lights through all of them. But if we're going to the properties, inside here to the influence, we can select what is can influence. And it's right now it says all object, none, only object marked below. So I'm going mark below, and I will go select cube 1. Let's go click OK. Notice what's happening. It is only highlight this. But we do have a reflective lighting, and this is very interesting because what we can do in this case, we can create this like LCD screen with projection, says this light affecting only one, and the reflection from this will go to all object around, will create like realistically screen. Or you can do same, and sometimes when I want to boost like neon lighting or other things, we can create those elements glowing, and it's not that hard. We just need to take a cube. We can go inside the material of the cube, and several options. We can also just add luminosity here. It's not always work necessarily. See, like kind of luminosity sometimes not produce as much as I wanted. And you know what? Let's example. We have it luminosity here. We'll turn off our lighting, and sometimes it may work. Sometimes it's kind of may not work. But you maybe some don't want this high luminosity because see we don't see texture or anything. In some screens maybe you want to actually see something, but luminosity will kind of blend all these colors with the lights, so you can do that way. We can take this, for example, cube, and also convert to the light source, and when we do this, it just change and creating, we'll lose some stuff. This not necessarily the better way to do, and for me again to play around with this, what I prefer, just put an image on so you can see the image, make a light source effect only one specific, and then it's produced. That as well, you don't just restrict to this, because you can go to influence and just as opposite, except all effect all except one. So you can go this way or other things. So you can go kind of in an interesting way. For example, let's select all except first cube. So in this case, you can see it's affecting everyone except that specific. And that is nice if you try to do like with portraits example. I found out in Vue, when you create portrait, you want to create specific lighting so you can like emphasize on something. It's very nice options right there in influence, and very powerful to highlight specific elements in your scenery. Well, let's cancel this. Let's go ahead, and what are we going to do? We'll go to destroy all of this, because we'll go back to our original scenery. And I'm going just to play a little bit more with the lighting. Okay, let's put right on the back, so we have a sun, maybe a little bit on the side right there. Just create a nice look. Many times when I play with atmospheres and I find something that I like it, I save this atmosphere, put it in my collections for the future use, because much easy if you already have your own presets, and when you work on future work, you may find some preset you already have it some kind of close enough, open and use it. And let me show you how you can do this. So for example, let's play a little bit more with this atmospheres, and we continue doing this. For this, I'm going to atmosphere editor, and atmosphere editor, it's a little bit more global versus lighting. If you saw with light properties, they're going specifically to every light source. So each light source have their own light properties. That's what we looked before. But atmosphere, it's more global, that affecting how the light interact, which reflecting from the object, come from the sources, and so on. But we do have it here also properties of the sun, and right there you can see this is sun. You can have it one visible sun. However, you can have it more than one directional sources. If you go inside and select, for example, our directional light panel, the light portal, there you go, directional, you can notice it's look almost like a sun. It's have its same icon, and it's nice to create directional lights from different areas. However, if we put it two together, you can notice it is not real visible at this time. We could, let's go ahead and edit these lights. Oops, right here. We could kind of play around. If we add like flare to this, we can play a little bit more visible. You have it options like enable volumetric. In some case, you will see the dot will appear in other ones. So we have some options for this, but general, just keep in mind, you can have it only one sun that can affect it. So if we're going to play with a little bit later with all this positioning, sizes and other things, that we can only affect one of the sun. Well, I'm going to delete direction lights and let's go back to our sun. We'll go to atmosphere editor. And let's actually just go a little bit over the all the properties, see what they can do here. Don't worry if you don't remember all of them, because we will come back and we work with a project, and it's a better way to remember when you work with project. So right here, you'll notice we have it on the top options, create new, save, load, preload. So it's a generic things you can do with atmospheres. And again, in this case, if you want to just click on a save and save your atmosphere just in your preset so you can work. If you do interested, I have hundreds and hundreds of the atmospheres preset that I created before, and they're available for the Patreon downloaded. So I'll put a link down below if you're interested in this. Okay, so right here we have a sun, and you can see automatic sun color, which applied with the, our set. Next, we have it positioning. This is options to switch to real world position, and this meaning you can have it location, day, time, and this will set sun and specifically that when you're done. That is very useful if you try to create environment to match maybe photo you took before or a specific area, or I use it actually when we did environment for the film. You can go here and says, hey, I shot this film on this location, and I shot, and by the way, if we click location, you can see right here we have a map opening, so you can, very cool, you can says, hey, I shot like right here in Utah, whatever azimuth, longitude, latitude, and you can say I shot in this time, and it's set precisely sun in this position and everything, orientation, which is helpful a lot. So you don't need worried about where's my sun located. So you can do this. You can also just go and custom, we just have it simple, your azimuth pitch, and in this case you don't need to drag. You can drag it, so actually what I do here, but you can also just go instead take and drag. You can play with numbers if you prefer this, some references. Attach camera to camera directions, mean where's your camera going, sun will follow this. The other one's kind of cool, and this is the size of corona and visibility of the sun. So right now you can see it's 100% visibility. Let's go disable, and you can see right there it's kind of will start disappearing. Right now it's not totally disappearing because we have it, corona is bigger, and corona is that flame kind of going around, yes. And also size. So if we, let's say this, we'll reduce size of the sun, and it's almost disappear. Let's remove even corona so we don't have it, and see it's all gone, so we don't have it. If we increase size of the sun, we can also create big sun, small, just general. The corona, it's what going this glowing around, and if we, you can see no visible corona, let's create large, and you can see how it start glowing here, and a little bit less glowing. Combination of the big sun and corona, you can create a very beautiful sunset, very beautiful. So for example, if we reduce a little bit visible sun to a little bit smaller, and you see how corona right there, let's increase a little bit and see how the glowing going. That is beautiful if you do like water, sunset, or ocean. It's look very good if you do this way. Okay, and also we have it full visible or reduce. Play around with this, it just reduce amount of sun, but for I would just want to make like a little bit visible corona, so it's create a very beautiful look. Okay, let's go with the lighting. This is way more here for this video, but just generally let you know we have a different lighting models that was developed during the evolution of the Vue, and it starts standard, global, ambience. And I remember when ambient occlusion was introduced in the early versions, it was awesome because it is can lights from calculate lights from reflective materials. I mean, that was very cool. Global illuminations and latest global radiosity, it's what usually we will use all most of the time. The other ones models you can use if you needed concept, maybe pre-render very fast, because it does not necessarily give you accuracy, but it's still render not bad, but it's extremely fast. So you can use some of those ones. Some of them won't work with your volumetric materials, so be sure you use it properly. And by the way, on the top with my atmosphere model, if you click down, you can see right here we have the standard. It's a first, it's what I say, basic, volumetric, standard spectral, and photometric. Photometric is calculating more accuracy on intensity of the lights based on all your settings. Standard is what was before, and standard provide more vibrant, saturated colors. So for illustrations, when I create, I like to use the actual standard spectral, but photometric give you more natural, this environmental look. And notice these ones, volumetric and standard here, a little bit different from lighting model. So this is atmosphere model, and that is a lighting model. Okay, let's go next. Look what we have on our right side. It's a shadow smoothing. Again, this is transitions between dark and light, so you can increase the smoothness, sky dome, lighting, and overall gain lights. You can play with this. Sometimes I do like take a little bit more on saturations to add a little bit colorizations, and you can see maybe, you know, let's go to more critical, like very crazy. Okay, so let's go something like this. Okay, and it will add more saturation to this. And of course, if you mess up, you can go ahead, just click reset colors, and it's reset to your default one. Quality, very simple, faster or better quality. And that you can play around a little bit when you see grain kind of in the air. And that is happening because when it's calculating how light's passing between particles, sometimes the path can be terminated before all path calculating, and it will create those dark points. For example, just in the real world, just imagine the lights, photon, whatever, hit one molecule of the water in the air, yes, and after it's split, it's lose some value, but it's split, it's a diffraction happening, and it's going for all different ones. Of course, in a light, it's never terminated, yes, until it's absorbed. But in this case, if we do this, it will take infinity time of render. We need sometimes terminate, and it's what happened, how many times that is a ray bounced around before terminations has happened. And it's more in advanced rendering options. But general right here with quality boost simplified, it's give it more times when it can bounce around. So it creates smoother things, calculating a little bit more. But again, better or faster. So you just play around, see which one work. Below we have it light intensity, and this is just simple how brighter it is. We produce light balance, ambient from sunlight. So if you have it sunlight right there, we can go. You'll notice we'll have it more darker shadows, so lights definitely produce from this. And if we're going to ambient more in a rainy day, and I give you kind of tip where you want to use it. If you want to create this gray, rainy, Oregon type, well, I used to live in Oregon, yeah. If you want this Oregon type day, like rainy, kind of down, then you could put everything in ambient, yeah. And trust me, it will look like it's very rainy day. And of course, you can play around. Usually, just middle will work just fine. Same with the intensity of ambient light. You can have it uniform from every or directly from the sun, from the sky, and after reflecting from a subject. So the other things on the right, we have it a light color, and you can change if you switch your different model. Currently, some of these properties will be locked if you're in a photometric. But we also have the ambient light, and ambient light color currently set to white. I almost always go to the darker blue desaturated color. It just provides a little bit more interesting coloring to me, give it this transition to the yellow reddish kind of just more dramatic look. Nothing else, just play with colors. But if you want natural, you probably want to go again, right click reset, and it will reset to your original. And below, of course, we have it override some for the metric. You can add brightness, reduce brightness. This is kind of allowed you to customize lighting in more in your way. And if you switch the standard spectral, you'll notice it says, do you want use automatic adjust or keep it whatever currently? We'll just go with thematic. Some of the properties here is changed, and look, our scenery is changed completely because it's work with a little bit different model calculations. Okay, let's go back to our photometrical. We switch this case. And let's go to the clouds. That is a clouds. You need 5-10 classes just only on the clouds. And make even things more interesting, they introduce new clouds, which is called smart clouds. that is huge class by itself. We will look on this later because that is introducing so natural, very nice clouds with easy to control and work, but they are a little bit different animal from other ones because they work a little bit more on the internal structure, how it's work. But general, right here you have all these different, lot of different clouds that you can preload it and work. You can also just start from previous cloud what you're using, and for example this is standard, and you can make all these different type of the layers of the cloud. Let me actually, you know what, let's delete this one, and we're going to preload different one. I just want very fast showing you, and we're going to spectral. Let's just select one default spectral, and as you add cloud, you can see in our scenery right here we have this cloud layer already added to us, so we can manipulate, and we can change inside with our sliders, or we can also manipulate directly inside the UI, which make quite a bit fun, like scale, positioning, everything. And currently cloud layer, it is infinity layer, so just as you create by default, it's meaning like your terrain, like water and other things, it's infinity, so it will spread as much as can. You can specify clouds in specific zone, and this is by going in the right area, top right, limited cloud to the zone. So by enable this, you can kind of set specific sections in work. But as I say, clouds will come back to this because that is one of the biggest object we need to cover here. Okay, we'll kind of skip through all these properties this time. Let's go to sky, fog, and haze, and you know what? Let me kill those clouds. Okay, sky, fog, and it is creating the density. Notice right here it says sky mean altitude. It's not mean middle. It's a middle of the density, and currently it's 8 kilometers. So it's everything calculating up to Earth. But if you want it, you can decrease. For example, if you drop down, you'll notice right here it will become much darker because our atmosphere is shrinking. And you can have a very interesting effect if, for example, your decay a little bit bigger or smaller, so you can play with all of these settings. General, what I like to do, have a decay just below, a little bit below sky ground, but you can play with those settings. As well, you can just change maybe sky density, which is also will have a little bit more reduction of air spray, lighting spray in air, so it will lead to a little bit darker and more saturated color, so you can play with this as well. Below we have fog and haze. The fog, it's mostly water based, will be on the ground kind of, and a haze, usually it is a dust particle, water particle, a little bit lighter through all the air, so the fog will be closer to the ground. Haze will be about same, but it's much higher. Same things right here, you can notice have it mean altitude, again middle of the density, and general you can modify also color on the haze and fog, and this kind of giveaway. If you look on a haze, it's a little bit grayish because it is more like a dust, you know, kind of desaturation. Below we have it glow intensity, and glow intensity kind of very nice absorb like from sun. So we have it sun right there. Let's increase our glow intensity, and you can see how it's glowing in the air from particles from our light source expanding and scattering entropy. This is kind of interesting because we actually, if we're going to higher number, you can see right there how it's much closer going scattering, and if we're going to reduction, it's actually will shrink kind of more to this way. So for the beautiful sunlight, you can kind of play like around there, maybe increase a little bit more on the glowing, add reddish to this color. You know what, let's go to drop a little bit color atmosphere. I like a little bit darker, so we can play with this cold, hot kind of environment. Below we have a cloud. It's when lighting, how distribution going with clouds over the lights. Right now we don't have it clouds, but general, if you increase value, the more lighting kind of will spread in the clouds, create this kind of glowing effect. It's very interesting to play with this if your clouds above the sun and you want sunlight, sunset kind of highlight them. Then next we have a global aerial perspective. This is option that allow to create this air density, which I like a lot. And you notice this sometimes when I'm using, and I want to create dimensions, because again we work in 3D world with two-dimensional representation. Yes, what we know from the distance, for our distance, it will be the contrast, saturations, and all the stuff. And this is Aial. It's what will work. It's add reductions in a saturation and contrast. So you can see we can create very beautiful on the dimensions stuff. And usually I add it. Quality boost by default -1, so it's a faster. And if you final render set at least at 0, it will reduce some graininess inside the renders. And you'll have it also got rays. It's direct from the sun. Usually you need it have it some separation, because if we just put it sun on top and enable God rays, you won't see it because it's straight, but you need to have it very high density clouds with openings. So in this case we can see those beams from sun, the sun rays coming down, and shadows on the clouds, because clouds, it's truly volumetrical here. If you have one cloud on top, clouds can cast shadows on each other, but it will take quite a bit of render power. So for many times you maybe don't want it if you don't specifically looking for that option. So let's disable here. Okay, next we have it our wind preview, and of course the Vue application, it is animation tool where we can very accurate simulate the effect of the wind. And these properties we can change just wind, breeze, and everything. We'll look closer when we're going with animations. Many times you maybe want to disable it, won't affect anything, but just let you know this is preview. Additional effects will apply, like if you want star, rainbows, ice rings. This is where we can enable. Personally, I like to use the image maps to use it as a stars, but we can also use directly here. And you can see right there, teeny tiny stars pop up. We can increase brightness, numbers of the stars, so they can come a little bit more on the sky. As well, you can enable the coloring on the star. I wish it was a little bit more control with the stars, like create clustering and other things, but I don't think it will ever be implemented. Sadly, developing cycle is stopped on a Vue. Maybe in the future renew, who knows. We don't know what future will bring to us, but to this point it's what we have here. And the reason is, I'm saying, because you probably want image maps on or drop kind of image on the background. I have a cool video about this. Okay, also you have the rainbow ice rings, and you have it apply the default lens flare on directionals to all lights or just directional, so you can play with this. Environmental maps allowed us to use it HDR maps for our lighting or surrounding. And right here you can notice you have it our map where you can preload it. This is another ways of the lighting, and in some cases HDR lighting may provide more interesting lights if you develop in another environment. Maybe you have it like 3D camera, you took lights outside and you want to apply this. They work very well here. As well, you can use the illuminations and reflection map, which is kind of very nice about this. And of course we have it our little particle systems here. It is rain and snow. This is very interesting because if you, for example, going with a rain, let me show what's happening in this case, you'll notice will appear like around the camera. It's kind of let me see if I can find right here. See this circle? It's a where's the area of the rain, and it makes sense because you don't want the rain spread all over area. Yes, it's because it's a particle system, it will be a nightmare to calculate. So in this case, it's much easy just to take the snow or rain system and just localize around the camera, so you can do this way as well. Down below, notice you have it enable collision, so technically you can actually create snow that respond with another object which says respond with collisions, like maybe your ecosystem with the plants, buildings, or terrain. So you can do this way. Well, let's go ahead and disable this to none because we don't need to create this. And this is about all with our atmospheres. So we'll look on the lighting with the lights. And of course, we'll come back more to see what different type of lights, because you'll notice we have it standard, we have it quadratic standard, we have it spotlights, we have it also our direction lights, what we looked before. We have it our light panels. We also have it our daylight portal, which is kind of nice when you work one render inside the building or somewhere. You can create those daylight portals which project lights through that specific areas. So that is one. We'll look on some sound properties or specific objects, I don't know what do we call this, like directional lights, meaning if we go to edit this one, all of these additional properties. So we have it here. And another things before we be all the way done, I want to just point you, if you're going to the properties of main camera, inside the main camera, you also have it options right here, little bit modification for the lighting. What is meaning? You have it after exposure. You can enable. Same, we have type of the exposure if you want to increase, decrease. You have a different type of the filters, cinematic, photography, which apply different curve for your workflow on the saturations, contrast, some other elements here. You have your option modes which you want to apply, and of course you have your post-processing can be applied here. You have it more non-photorealistic post-processing as well, but that is totally different animals. So just keep in mind you have it also some settings of lighting here. And as we speak about some lightings, let me also going inside our render properties, and remember that lighting will be also affect but what settings you have here. So be sure you have it at least at the final, don't use it on previews. Then we'll provide a little bit more accurate rendering. And if you have a problem with the lights, mostly if you work with volumetric, how I said before, grainy stuff, then you want to go inside and increase quality here. But that is another time for more advanced subjects about lighting. Well, thank you for watching this video. This is more like overview of the lighting. Of course, we're going to put it hands-on and create project specifically with different environments. Rainy day, sunny day, we'll do God rays, all this stuff. And we'll see you in those future videos. Have a great time.